Okay. So you get two today. So I'm gonna go off about the UFO burlesque that's been going on since what? The last week since the 14th of February, 2026. So what's a burlesque? This word, it's not used all that much in American English, and sometimes the definition gets skewed. So most people, you say the word burlesque, I think it's like a strip tease or like a sex show. A burlesque is really it's basically, when you look at the definition, it's kind of a low quality, tongue-in-cheek sort of a parody, and it's meant to elicit kind of a wild emotional response out of people. It basically it gets people all wound up and titillated, and just very very emotionally, how can I put it? Very emotionally stirred, let's say. So, also when you look at the definition of a burlesque, it's basically you know, let's just look it up. I've got my laptop right here. Burlesque. Ah, shit. I gotta put in the word definition in there. I'm getting all kinds of crap I don't want. All right, Merriam-Webster. So it's a mockery. Mockery usually by caricature. In literature, a literary or dramatic work that seeks to ridicule by means of grotesque exaggeration or comic imitation. Another definition: theatrical entertainment, broadly humorous, often earthy character consisting of short turns, comic skits, sometimes striptease acts. So yeah, so it's a mockery to imitate in a humorous or derisive manner. So that's what we've got going on with this whole UFO thing. I'm convinced. This is just about, it's about distraction. It's about, the mockery here is, the joke is on us. The joke is on us peasants. They're acting all serious, and we're supposed to play our part and go along with the seriousness. Um, but it's just ridiculous. So how this all started? Well, even before that. So what? The last 5, 6 years, the Pentagon's been putting out footage of UFOs, that have been pursued by US fighter jets and all that kind of thing. So aliens, for the longest time, it was a big joke. Anyone who thought aliens were real were, uneducated, moron, conspiracy theorists. Then the Pentagon released footage. So like it's real all of a sudden because, people with status and spectacular retirement plans through the federal government are saying it's real. So of course it's real. Because that's Cold War America, that's continued into modern times. It's like everything's about status and money. So yeah, now the people with the status and, well, a little bit of money have said it's real. It's real. So then you go to February the 14th. Look at the quote here. So Barack Obama was on a podcast, and what's the guy's name? Brian, the No Lie podcast with Brian Tyler Cohen as the host. And he asked, "Are aliens real?" Obama said, "They're real, but I haven't seen them. And they're not being kept in, what is it, Area 51. There's no underground facility. Unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the President of the United States." And it's like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, and here's the thing is, That was another thing in the Cold War is, the strongman leader who's the executive figure for the country, the president, prime minister, that became normalized in the United States. For the longest time, the president was just the butler. The butler is the foreman of the help. He's an employee, but he's the head employee, and he's supposed to work for people. Well, you get to the Cold War, after the trauma of World War II, and then the continued trauma of the Cold War, where basically a bunch of, Ivy League, the top of the Ivy League world, these waspy Wall Street bankers decided that they now ruled the world. That caused the whole Cold War. So, in the midst of all that, Americans started to basically worship the president. And this was really cemented under the reign of JFK, because he became the first television reality show president. So the president is basically daddy. The president is basically the national daddy. So, Obama, in this quote, he's saying, there's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy they hid from the president of the United States. And it's like, oh no, nothing could be hidden from the president of the United States. How impossible. Yeah, the the unelected federal bureaucracy that remains the same through every passing administration would never do that, because because you work every day for 50 years and you went to college and church and no one would lie to you. Yeah. There's nothing the president doesn't know. And that's a funny thing too, is the president, people in government, these high profile people in government, they're a combination of either mommy or daddy, God, and Jesus. Because, and that's another thing too, is like after World War II, people just stopped growing up. Like at this point, it's like we're an elderless society. So they need mommy daddy figures. It's like that's why, around the year 2000, after the dot-com crash, there were two choices. It's like you either go to war in the Middle East or you nationalize the retirement funds. They could get away with nationalizing that now, but in 2001, the World War II generation was still alive, and it's like they were like a dog whistle to the baby boom. If retirement funds had been nationalized, if the Plan B had been gone with, and there were no Middle East wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the World War II generation would have told baby boom to get angry about it, and that would have mobilized them. Now that the World War II generation's gone and they're not telling them what to think, say, and do, then it's like a lot more is possible. We had the lockdowns, and the economy's really, really shit the bed more than ever. So yeah, so it's like people need these mommy, daddy, Jesus, God, politician figures. That's a whole sidetrack thing. It's like that's like the whole the deliberately confusing thing with Jesus. It's like my kingdom is not of this world, but I'm a king and I'm a politician. And people just need that. It's like the mommy daddy issues are getting worse by the generation. For the last 80 years. So yeah, well, the president of the United States would have to not know something for this to be secret. Well, the thing is Barack Obama had Dr. Stephen Greer into the White House to brief him on the UFO phenomenon. What was it? Bill Clinton did, Bush Jr., Obama, and Trump. The Biden White House did not invite Dr. Greer. So if you're not familiar with Stephen Greer, he refers to himself as a ET, extraterrestrial contactee. Um, Anybody can say that about themselves, but the thing is Stephen Greer has amassed 300 expert witnesses, mostly from the military and scientific communities, and they were about to be part of major congressional and Senate hearings in September 2001. And right before they happened, 9/11 popped off and the hearings never happened. So Stephen Greer is basically this nexus of these hundreds of expert witnesses. These people they're military technicians, they're engineers, they're scientists, they're fucking huge. I think there's some astronauts in the mix. Um, he's basically the clearinghouse where these people come to, give their testimony and, make themselves known. So by these four presidents, he was invited into the White House to brief them on the UFO phenomenon because Central Intelligence and NSA and NASA, these national agencies won't tell the presidents anything about them. So, go figure. Yeah, I mean, Obama didn't mention that, but you look up that fact, well, he wasn't told anything. So you've got that going on. And then a week later, Trump was on Air Force One. He was talking to the reporters, and they said, "Well, what do you think about what Obama said?" Trump, he said, "Quote, I don't know if they're real or not, but I can tell you he gave classified information." So he didn't laugh it off. He didn't say, "Oh, this shit isn't real at all. It's total nonsense." Did you believe those conspiracy theories, like the way he played down Epstein? So, which, with the whole Epstein thing, somebody's probably threatened to like nuke a city in the US if he pursues it. It's like the villain's inspector in the 007 novels. I have to make a video about that. But, Ian Fleming was a 25-year veteran of British intelligence, and Spectre was a billionaires club who they do things like that. They blackmail governments, and they'd say, if you don't meet our demands, we're going to nuke one of your cities. So yeah, Trump says, I don't know if they're real or not, but I can tell you Obama gave classified information. And he says he's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. And then he said, I may get him out of trouble by declassifying this information. So what we have here, this is the making of a psyop, a psychological operation. The benevolent U.S. military, after World War II, renamed its propaganda division PSYOPs, psychological operations. So this is a making of a PSYOP. PSYOPs are founded on cognitive dissonance. So it's when you're given two opposing views of a matter and you don't know which one to believe. Every election is like this. Every political party does this. Churches do this. God's going to throw you in hell, but he loves you. If you follow all the rules, Jesus may get you into heaven, or he may not. So this is always going on. So, yeah, I think what you've got here, you've got these two presidents from these supposedly enemy parties, these supposedly opposing parties. And they're saying, well, I don't know about this personally, but they're real. But they're not real, but they're real. So they're setting up the confusion. So we're being burlesqued here. This, it's a mockery. We're being mocked. It's a low quality, low cost production. It's a giant farce. So I'm sure, the UFO files. They're probably going to be like the Epstein files. It's like it's information that they're willing to part with in order to do damage control. To make it look like they're being transparent and they gave us something. Um, but I'll have to put this back into a video. But there's this little worm named Paul Krugman. He's one of these Cambridge, Mass. Again, he's a mentally ill academic in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's where Harvard University and MIT are, right across the river from Boston. 2009, he was doing a TV circuit, and they were like, and so this Krugman, this Paul Krugman, it's like little, I don't know, he's like a little rat. There's, he was an economic advisor to the Obama administration. They said, Dr. Krugman, how do we get ourselves out of this great recession? And he's like, well, if there was an alien ET threat and we had to build all new technology and all two new weapons to combat it, but even if we found out it wasn't real, it's like, oh well, we got a whole new technology and economy. So this is in 2009. It's like, yeah, we may fucking lie to you about this a fake existential threat just so we can juice up the economy and line our pockets. So he's telling you, these are the greatest minds of academia, on this shit and doing this shit. So yeah, I don't know. They may try that because, Trump then said, I've advised the Secretary of War to look into this and release pertinent files. I love that. I like that term, Secretary of War. It's very honest. The term Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, is complete hypocrisy. You don't bomb countries 10,000 miles away to protect your own. So anyway, yeah, they could try to play that game. I don't know. I seriously question their ability to execute something like that because just the degeneration in the administrative class is just so deep. They just don't seem to be able to hold it together to do a whole lot. But yeah, they may try this out. And the other thing is too, is it's like we may be due for it because that's the thing is like whether they know it or not, it's not just the baby boom, but there's this term echo boomers, and it's like the Gen Xers and the millennials who it's like they still have like the Cold War baby boom mindset that the world is still that way, and they're still pursuing that life in that world. The boomers and the echo boomers are very wrapped up in the foundational myth of World War II. So if you're not familiar with the term foundational myth, a foundational myth it's a narrative about something that happened in the past that political and religious and educational manipulators use to organize a society and convince people to do certain things. So in our time, it was the revolution, and then when the Revolutionary War, when we had no living memory of the Revolutionary War, then it was the frontier. And then once the living memory of the frontier was gone, it became World War II. And now that the living memory of World War II is nearly gone, it's going to be so-called progress. And basically what this foundational myth of progress is going to be is that the government saved everyone from everything. You don't have to have strength, fortitude. You don't have to have balls. You don't have to have courage. You don't have to have fitness. You don't have to have confidence. You don't have to have common sense to solve your own problems because the government's going to do it all for you. That's going to be the new foundational myth. But World War II is still in play. So a lot of people in the baby boom and then, the echo boomers and, Gen X millennials, they're very wrapped up in the narrative of World War II and how the US supposedly won that, even though they only did 5% of the heavy lifting. They came in right at the end and ran the ball from the 5 yard line into the end zone and act like they made a 100-yard kickoff return. So they're very wrapped up in this. And the whole point is that I think they've been manifesting a great war because they want a great war. They've wanted a great war for years in order to prove themselves because of codependence. You've got to prove yourself, otherwise you're an unworthy piece of shit, right? So they've wanted this great war in order to prove that they're as worthy as their grandparents or their parents. So yeah, some bullshit. The next war will manifest because of this, because people have been wishing for it for so long, even if they don't know that they've been wishing for it. It's like, but these so many intelligent humanitarian Americans, if they get off on watching German soldiers get killed and then on ridiculing the German people. Anytime Germany comes up in conversation, they have to be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, they're kind of Nazis. Yeah, it's in their blood. It's like warriors, they don't fucking humiliate people. There's an old saying, slay a man if you must, but never humiliate him, because it's not graceful. It's not dignified. And if that humiliated man ever gets back up, he's going to whip your fucking ass. So, yeah. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah, they may try some bullshit alien war thing, but I don't think they have the mental organization and the competence to make it convincing, because, it's like these generations born during the Cold War, it's like we're people of instant gratification and convenience. The old folks, they played the long game. They're very patient. They held their cards close. But those of us in the Cold War generations, it's like it's got to be gratification now. There's a big new Brzezinski, before he passed, even said this. He was horrified at the impulsiveness of the younger generations who were, taking over. Impulsiveness of the younger generations who were, taking over temporal power in the world, the power that can be seen. So anyway, I'm gonna end that one there. Thanks for watching. Drop me a thumbs up and a comment if you liked it. Helps the channel, but as you know, this is kind of my it's my stream of consciousness to get the stuff out of my head, depressurize. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. Have a nice one.